1, 2, 3, 4, blood red. 1, 2, 3, 4, blood red. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hello and welcome to the latest Blood Red podcast from the Liverpool Echo. It's deadline day and I'm Joe Rimmer, joined by Paul Gorst. How are we, Paul?
Good, yeah. About
Busy
midway
day?
through a very long day, aren't we? And
Yeah.
going to get stuck into it to see what's happening and what's not happening, and previewing a certain trip to Manchester United. So lots to get stuck into this, evening, I guess, now.
Yeah, certainly. And Ian Doyle, how are you?
I'm tired. I'm bored. Let's crack on.
Always nice to see you, Ian. Before we do crack on, it's always nice to see NordVPN, who help us out and help us do what we do. So a big thank you to them for their support. Go check them out. And to get the best discounts off your NordVPN plan, go to nordvpn.com/bloodred. Our link gives you 4 months extra free on a 2-year plan. There's no risk at all with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. The link is in the podcast episode description box. We're live on YouTube. So if you're watching along, I'm already keeping an eye on the questions. Mike Johnson has already sent loads of questions. So if you have some questions, drop them in the chat and I'll try and get to them as we go along. Give us a like, give us a thumbs up, press the bell to subscribe. And if you listen on Apple Podcasts, give us some stars, give us a review. We really appreciate it and we always have a look. So yeah, that'd be great. But let's get to it. It's transfer deadline day, and I think the emphasis is on the deadline day today. It's not been the most busy, has it?
No, I mean, Slot pretty much set the tone for it, didn't he? At 9 o'clock at his press conference, he got asked about, as you'd imagine, any incomings, and he said he didn't expect anything to be happening. Sort of left the door ajar, but I think that was just, don't think he was sort of trying to tease anything, but he essentially just said no, didn't he? And we've come to expect Liverpool not being part of the mayhem that unfolds on deadline day. You've normally got the feet up with the business done with plenty of time. Ryan Gravenberch was a little bit of a different situation last year, but the mitigating factors around that, and he was very much a long-standing target. But yeah, Liverpool tend to keep the powder dry, don't they, rather than going a bit crazy and seeing who's available in the final hours. And as sort of boring and mundane as that may seem at times to fans, is probably the best strategy to have. But that means that when it comes to deadline day, we are left with not a whole lot to talk about. Certainly in terms of exciting incomings anyway.
I'm slightly jealous of our Chelsea colleagues who must be...
What's happening?
Well, maybe jealous,
Sancho,
right? But they've got lots to go
Sterling,
out.
it's all happening.
Mike Johnson says, "Sorry, I'm super frustrated." Mike, don't apologise. You're not the only person frustrated by this window. Doyley, are you frustrated?
No, I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I enjoy deadline day when absolutely nothing happens. I do think it's
the window. I didn't say just the day.
Oh, the window. No, you don't want nothing to happen in the window, do you? We'd have nothing to write about. That's ultimately what it's about. Not having any words, I do.
It's great, this analysis, isn't it? That's why you tune in. Yeah.
Well, I think, to be fair, I do actually think that's quite interesting because people do tune into this just to also listen to what we do. And we have to say that on deadline day, as Liverpool reporters, as I've been for quite a few years, hardly anything ever happens. And we're kind of used to it, as Gorsty just said then. I've done Everton, and Everton is just
it's always the opposite, yeah.
Mayhem.
Backs to the
right.
ball, by the sound
and
of
which
things.
two clubs... which of those two clubs has done better over the last 10, 15, 20 years? I know it's not just down to that, but
covering the 2011 January transfer deadline day, which is probably the most infamous, most famous one in Liverpool's recent
Torres
history.
and Suarez. Yeah, I was
Andy
covering
Carroll.
that. Yeah, that was quite a lot happened there. There was an Everton one, I think it was 2002, where they signed about 7 players in 10 minutes. But actually, that worked out quite well for them. So it just goes to show that just because you leave it late doesn't mean it can't work out, because you don't sign a player for the next day, do you? You sign him for 2, 3, or in Chelsea's case, 15 years.
Deadline day, was that before?
I think it was, but it was one of those ones where you knew it was happening, so it was confirmed by midday.
Gravenberch last year. So, no, in answer to your question, it's not been while I've quite enjoyed today because not much is going on, I think the people who are watching and listening will find it quite interesting the way things work, and our view of the transfer window isn't necessarily the same as what supporters would be. I mean, you look at it, and I know we're going to get onto it now, talking about what we think of the transfer window, assuming that Liverpool aren't going to sign anybody. The direct fact is they were in for 3 players, and they haven't signed any of them, and they've ended up signing somebody else. So from that perspective, you have to say, well, it's not been quite as they planned. But if you just said at the start of it that you were going to get Chiesa for, what was it, £10 million? Yeah. You're going to, who's played in a European Championship final, scored in the semi-final, played for Juventus. He's more than a decent footballer. And you got a goalkeeper for, at the time you think, well, why are they doing that? But it's obvious that they got to, plan for the future at some point. And I don't think anybody who's seen him play doesn't think that Mamardashvili's a good goalkeeper. And, spoke to Alisson, I think we mentioned this last week, spoke to Alisson and he said that, he's all for it because clubs have to plan for the future because players don't stick around forever. I think the frustration with the supporters is because they thought that with a new manager coming in, great, there are going to be loads of new signings, as tends to happen, but that's not how it works all the time. And I've said this before, and I've said it again, the biggest change at Liverpool is the biggest change you could get, and that is the new manager, because he's in control of stuff. So that's going to be the big change for Liverpool this season, is the fact that the backroom staff's changed and they're going to be playing a different style of football with the players they've got. Is that a better answer for you?
You mentioned there about the manager, the biggest change being the manager. But I suppose the biggest change is the entire new structure of the club, isn't it? I thought it was interesting that Slot struggled to pronounce Mamardashvili today, as though he wasn't quite too up on who he was. I mean, obviously he knows who he is, but
I'm still struggling to spell it, to be fair.
Yeah, but it just come across as though he didn't necessarily know the ins and outs of a player who the club has just spent 29 million on. It was almost like, well, at least during next year, I'm not bothered at the moment.
There's a lot to be said for the continuity of the squad, and I've also said this before, is that if you've got a manager coming in whose remit is to improve the players that he's already got, it helps that most of them, in fact all of them, have been there, well, apart from Chiesa now, they've all been there for a while, so they know how to play alongside each other, and the manager feels as though he can use a different style, a different way of playing to get more out of them. And I think what we've seen already is, we were just talking about this before we came on air, is they've now got, I think what Slot wants is a very clearly defined way of playing in terms of players in positions. I don't think we're going to see Diaz playing on the right. I don't think we're going to be seeing Gakpo on the right, for example. I don't think we're going to see Harvey Elliott on the right, probably, unless there's a lot of injuries, in which case that's always the same for any kind of squad. But he kind of gave that away when he was talking about Harvey Elliott. He says, we brought Chiesa in to play on the right to compete with Salah. And Harvey Elliott's a number 10 with Szoboszlai. So now he's confirmed that he does play with a number 10 and where Harvey Elliott's position is going to be. So I do think there's a lot to be said for the clarity in that sense. We don't have players playing here, there and everywhere, which, again, can count against other players such as Joe Gomez.
We've got loads of questions coming in, so thank you for all the different questions and comments. I'll try and get to as many of them as possible. And they're all along the same theme, so I might just sort of speak to the guys about themes. Before we get to some of them, first of all, one specific question I wanted to ask you. Someone's asked what the situation is with Rio Nguma. Nguma, is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, I actually asked someone about that was it last week? And he's going through his Premier League sort of 5-step registration thing. Apparently that takes a little bit of time. But no concerns or issues of anything not happening there. I think he will be a part of the academy setup in the next few weeks, however long that takes. I'm not too sure, to be honest. But yeah, he will be a Liverpool player, and one who academy staff are massively excited about. I think it's going to be really interesting actually with him to see whether he's just blooded straight into the 21s as opposed to turning out for the 18s for a little bit. Yeah. Because we're going to come on to it, aren't we? There's going to be loads of players leaving from that age group. So Barry Lutus is going to need some quality, really. And according to a few people who I've spoken to, Rio Nguma certainly in that category. But no real issue with him not joining anyway. It's just this 5-step registration thing. That
question was from James Brook. James, thanks for the question. Hope that answers it. Okay, before we talk about the window as a whole, today, what's left to do? It's 5:25 now. There's basically a handful of young players who look to be heading out on loan. I don't think there's any permanent deals there, is there? It's
No,
talking
no.
Doak.
Ben Doak
Gordon.
is going to Middlesbrough.
Yeah.
Cade Gordon is on his way to Norwich. Stefan Bajcetic moved to Red Bull Salzburg, should be, completed imminently. So
Yeah.
I think those are the three, aren't they, at the moment? The players who've
Nat
certainly
Phillips.
Bajcetic anyway. Nat Phillips, yeah, he's on his way to Derby. Is that right?
Marcelo Pitaluga to Livingston at the Scottish Premiership as
Does anyone
well.
else have missed out?
I think Callum Scanlon went yesterday, didn't he, to Millwall.
Millwall.
I think there's still scope, I reckon, for a couple of players like Dominic Corness and James Norris. Both went on loan last season, and I know they were played. One of the very few who's actually played for the under-21s this season, and perhaps that might suggest that maybe they're not going out on loan. But I would imagine there's probably still a chance if something can get done. Because
Harvey Davis as well, maybe.
Harvey Davis as well. He trained with the first team today, so. Yeah, but then again, so did Tyler Morton, and it's be interesting to see what happens with him, because it looks as though nothing's going to happen with him, and he'll end up being part of the first team squad, certainly for the next 4 months.
Yeah. Do you think that it could be a chance for him to step up, perhaps? We've seen that before, haven't we? Bajcetic came in, didn't he, when he was needed?
Yeah, I mean, it's the fact that Bajcetic is going means that Tyler is now expected to stay. Yeah, I think he was sort of looking to push on, really, and go and play senior football somewhere else, having had a good taste of it in the last 2 years at Blackburn and then Hull. He had some big teams after him, probably still does, really. Leverkusen were trying to get him on loan. Atalanta and Leipzig were taking a look. I think Liverpool were looking for around about 20 million for him, and, for a number of reasons, it hasn't quite materialised. And, yeah, I suppose he's now going to be playing a bit of a backup to the likes of McAllister and Curtis Jones in that sort of, classy, controlling midfield role, which is a little bit further deeper than where Szoboszlai and Elliott are looking to play. So yeah, that looks to be the case. And yeah, I'm not sure how much he's going to play, in all honesty. Liverpool will have League Cup games, but I can't really see him getting a look in the Champions League unless there's a serious spate of injuries.
Yeah. All right, well, let's get into it about the transfer window. I've got a lot of people are very frustrated, upset. Some people pointed out quite rightly that Liverpool have got a really good squad, but lots saying that there were certain areas of the team that needed work going into this summer and that they've not been worked on. Quite a few people frustrated with the ownership, with Edwards. What have you made of it all? Gorsty, we'll start with you. How do you rate the window as a whole?
Yeah, I wasn't high on it at all until Chiesa come through, and then you start to see a little bit of a different slant on it. But I just feel, I mean, time will tell with the injuries. I think when everyone's fit and firing, Liverpool have got a really good squad. It's not a squad that can't be improved on, as I've said a few times on this pod, but this search for this mythical number 6 goes on. Whether it's Aurelien Tchouameni or Moises Caicedo and Romeo Lavia or Martin Zubimendi, Liverpool just can't seem to get the guy they want in that position, so they will continue to hold their horses and wait for the right man, and we'll see if that's the right decision or not. And I would have liked to have seen an all singing, all dancing central midfielder come into the club for big money and really provide that department with a real injection of quality, but Liverpool have decided that the right one wasn't there for them, so they're not doing it, and that tends to be how they work. I think Chiesa's a little bit different because it's not a department that was in desperate need of reinforcements. It would have been nice to have added a 6th, and that's what they've done for a real, shrewd £10 million Italian international. I think if Liverpool were adding a number 6 to the ranks for £10 million, someone whose best form hasn't really been shown for a number of years, I think then that would be a cause for 1 or 2 panic stations. But this is sort of adding from a position of strength, I think, with Chiesa. But ultimately, I would have liked to have seen 1 or 2 more, Can't deny that.
John Henry's in the comment and he says, Ian says everything is amazing, while in truth it's not looking good. I mean, that's the owner of the club right there. But
he says everything's amazing.
Ian,
I never say anything's amazing.
So are you going to say this is an amazing window?
No, I've just... Well, let's put it this way, right? Is that if they sign nobody, then you'd be slightly concerned. But the fact that they've got Chiesa through, the fact that they could have got Gordon, had Newcastle not pulled the plug, that would have meant Joe Gomez going the other way, which then would have meant they probably had to have signed a centre-back. The Zubimendi we know about. and they were looking at Lenny Yoro, weren't they? So they've kind of shown the hand in the three positions that months ago we said were the three positions they were going to look at, which was a wide forward, a defensive midfielder, or certainly that kind of position, and a centre back. And of course, what's happened is, unless Joe Gomez goes in the next few hours, they'd have had 5 centre backs, so they've still got the 4. And Gomez, who, don't forget, didn't play hardly at centre back last season. I know Matip was there until the December, but that's still 6 months of the season where Matip wasn't there. Wide forwards, Salah. I think Liverpool have been lucky for the past, up until last season that Salah never got injured. And he finally did do it, and it's like, well, what we're going to do here? And they never really did find a convincing answer to it. So I'm not surprised that they were able to, upgrade there. Oops. What are you chuckling at? Go on.
No, just continue.
Okay. So I'm not surprised that they've upgraded there. And no, go on, tell me what it is. No, go on, I need to know now.
John Henry's come straight back and said, looking doesn't mean we signed Baldy.
Well, that's not very nice.
It's not very kind from John Henry.
That's what he's mean, isn't he?
John Henry. John Henry.
Yeah.
At least, it's one of those things, isn't it? Is that, what I would say is, if you resort to name calling, especially somebody who's got 2 first names, I think I've won that particular argument.
He's a bit.
I don't even know what the argument was. What was the argument?
He doesn't agree with you.
He doesn't agree with the fact that I said that the window wasn't amazing, so he does think it's amazing.
Look,
exactly.
What I would say is, I don't necessarily, for all the sort of stick to get warranted or otherwise, I don't think this is an FSG thing. I think Liverpool is very much a strategic thing, probably from Edwards down to, keep the powder dry, hold the horses, whatever phrase you want to use. And I think the money is there for when that time comes, and maybe they think, kick the can down the road to next summer when they might need a little bit more. And I know supporters will roll their eyes and groan at that phrase next summer, because next summer never seems to arrive, but that is possibly one explanation for why they've been a little bit subdued this summer.
Yeah, a lot of people talk about FSG. I agree with you. I don't necessarily think that this is an owner thing. I think that this is a strategy thing. I think it's the way that Michael Edwards works. And if you don't like it, blame Edwards. Don't necessarily. And trust me, there are plenty of people in the comments that are doing that. But I don't necessarily think we always point the finger at the owners and say it's them stopping things. I just think, if you listen to anything that is said about the recruitment department, if you don't believe me, go and read Ian Graham's book, his comments. He said exactly that they don't want to sign players, and they don't believe that signing squad players is the right thing to do. He says he wants to sign first team players. But for all that being said, I think this year my big issue is injuries, and we know the squad gets injuries. And Doyley's right. They've got 2 players for every position. They've got a good squad. They finished 3rd last year. They've got a new manager, new setup. They could improve. I'm not saying any of that isn't possible, but we all know that Konate gets injured quite a lot. The midfielders, Curtis Jones has already missed a couple of games.
Before, didn't we?
Yeah, and I just think Liverpool need to look at the squad they've got, the players they've got, and recognise that, this is an injury-prone, whether they like it or not, an injury-prone squad. If they can keep them fit, then they'll be okay. But I think we'll get to November and we'll all be talking about injuries again, and we'll be talking about leaving themselves short. And
I'm hoping it's a different style, isn't it? That's meant to prevent injuries, and it's not helpful either for 90 minutes every single week. So we'll see how much of an impact that has on, load management and injury prevention specialists and all these sorts of phrases.
I mean, they alluded to that today with me, with Chiesa. Slot sort of said that our performance team. So I definitely think there's a school of thought at the club that we're going to start keeping people fit better. And
they need to. Look, you could argue, to look how it's come on, that Liverpool were unfortunate under Klopp, but at a certain point you've got to start questioning why are we getting so many injuries? Fans asking that question when they were 12 or 13 out injured at a real crunch time of the season, sort of like late February. That's not misfortune, is it? That many players. Some of them were impact injuries, but the majority of them were muscle injuries, which stemmed from the playing style, which was sort of the drawback that you had to accept, for such a style under Klopp, which was exhilarating at times, but took its toll on players whose injury records weren't great.
Yeah, I just think it's a big risk, and I think recent history tells us how this squad reacts and how many players get injured, and to not. And I understand the idea that they wanted Zubimendi, and they put their eggs in that basket. But they know, again, they've got all the evidence they need to know that going after players, there's a big chance they say no, or you don't get them for whatever reason, and there has to be a backup. And I don't agree with Chelsea's throwing money around everywhere. You know, I think they're ridiculous, some of the deals they do, but
there's a middle ground.
There's a middle ground, and Liverpool just aren't getting into that middle ground ever. And I'd be very surprised if we're sitting here at the end of the season talking about lots of trophies and lots of success, because I just don't think they're quite there. And I think, you know, it's all right talking about next season, but then again, what happens next summer if Van Dijk, Salah and Trent leave? There's 3 huge holes in the squad they're going to have to fill in one summer, and I'm sure they'll start talking about then, well, we didn't have the money to go and do 5 players, so we had to do 1 or 2. So, you know, we've seen it before with Bellingham. You know, they left things and then said, oh, well, we needed several midfielders and not one. Well, for a club who talks about planning ahead, they're not planning for what the natural things that happen in football, which is players leave, players lose form, they get injured, unexpected things happen, and that's why you have to take gambles sometimes.
Yeah. What I would say is, well, it doesn't work like this, but maybe it should. Like last year, obviously Liverpool went to buy Moises Caicedo for 111 million. Didn't get him. Pivoted to Endo, who cost 16. So there's a big surplus there, which sort of got swallowed up and never got mentioned again. Didn't they? They brought in Gravenberch, but they were sort of already chasing him for quite a while. So whatever way you're looking at it, there's still a lot of money that was reserved for transfers that hasn't been used. And then this summer, they're actually in credit, aren't they, from the players they've sold? Van den Berg, Carvalho, Bobby Clark, and even a few bob from Solanke going to Bournemouth, to Tottenham from Bournemouth. So if they haven't really spent loads over the last 2 summers, so is that all being sort of squirreled away for a rainy day next year? Or does that just disappear? I don't know.
The good thing is I can see the comments now, and I can tell you, I'll just go through some of them. Stu says that we are all a bunch of FSG apologists, spoofers. Yeah. Spoofers being the new word, clearly people who don't.
I wish you had a pound for every time.
Exactly.
I do like this one. I only want Zendaya. If I don't get her, I don't go after another sound plan.
You want
for Zendaya.
Oh right, yeah.
Somebody's left because they said they can't take excuses, and somebody says I can't wait for the Winch season to close. That's Bob Burns.
The only thing I would say is, what do people want us to say? I mean, we've criticised. I think they should have signed more players this summer.
I don't think they should have sold Bobby Clark. But,
but these,
I agree. Yeah.
And I don't care what people say. If you think that FSG are the worst owners, then go to Anfield and have a walk around it and remember how it used to look.
And then go to Goodison and have a word with some Everton fans.
You know, exactly. You know, we cover Everton as well.
Unreasonable shouting on podcasts. Then that's probably not. They're not the podcast for you. I
exactly.
guess.
I mean, you need to think beyond transfers, and also, you know, someone's here saying at least Chelsea buy players. Well.
I'm not having that. I'm not having that at all. It's been terrible for 2 years.
Yeah, the proof will be in the pudding.
For at least 2 years.
If in a year's time Liverpool have won nothing, Chelsea have won everything, yeah, we can say. But so many people talk about transfers when in the summer, wait for a season. You know, Chiesa might be a great deal, he might be a bad one, but we don't know until a season down the line when we can actually judge him. But this idea that, you know, we've seen before, haven't we? People saying they've won the transfer window. And what happened next? So
it's like
people need to stop being.
Someone's going to do a thing in a
silly,
bit. Forget Liverpool for a minute. Someone's going to do a thing tomorrow and say, who's won the transfer window and rate out of 10? You don't know for another 3 years. You won't know for another 3 years who won this year's transfer window, because then you'll know what happened with the players, who's success, who won stuff, and just as well, with the ones that didn't work, who was able to move them on and get a profit. That's just
my only thing is, I agree with you there, but my only thing is, I think I said it last week, is don't really know what's coming down the rails with this Man City case with the 115 charges. Now, it's unprecedented, so anything could happen.
Yeah.
So if something opens up there where Liverpool sort of really have an opportunity to usurp them as champions, and they struggle to do it because they just fall a little bit short with the squad, I think they'll be kicking themselves for a good long time.
Yeah. I mean, a couple more questions. One, any news on Finch's next gig?
That's how lead guitarists is put that in.
Oh, is that? All right, okay, yeah. All right,
Ask him.
Fair enough.
October are the rumours?
There's rumours about October the 12th is a rumour, yeah.
Oh, can you confirm that now?
No, can't. No.
I mean, Mike Johnson says that he wants us to challenge Michael Edwards and Richard Hughes a bit more. But first of all, they don't speak. They don't make themselves available. And second of all, we do challenge them. And I also think
have a look on our website. We write enough stuff about it. This is like people just.
We write plenty of stuff, and also, we have to be fair. It is Richard Hughes' first summer. I think you can challenge him, but if you want to absolutely hammer him, then yeah, I don't agree with that.
As has been mentioned a few times, he's got given this hospital pass of taking on Mo Salah, Virgil van Dijk, and Trent Alexander-Arnold, Liverpool's captain, vice captain, and leading scorer. And while he's trying to get these other transfers sorted or moving players around for a new manager who's still determining what he wants to do, it's and we've got these 3 players and they're all out of contract at the end of next season, so you need to sort that as well. So it's it's tough. And I know these people get paid an awful lot of money to do their job, but it's difficult. Otherwise, everybody would be doing it, and they're not.
Yeah. Well, Liverpool play Manchester United on Sunday.
Is it a football game?
Yeah, a football match. But I think it's an interesting opportunity to sort of contrast the two clubs. We were reading about Man United's injury news before. They got quite a few injury problems. They're selling or have sold Scott McTominay. They're still trying to buy Ugarte from PSG, and Sancho's leaving. I mean, there's a club. They're trying to repackage themselves this summer as being quite a clever club, I think. But there's a club that is so badly run. Would the people in the comments and the people that are frustrated, would they want to be more like Man United? Would you want to be more like Man United?
Well, judging from a few of the comments you've read out, I guess they would, because they've spent, was it 170 million or something? Yeah, I mean, United are painting themselves as a more sensible, serious operation this summer, aren't they? But I'm not really sure what they're basing that on, really. They just seem to be the same old team who have gone and spent a few more to get Ten Hag's former players in. Manuel Ugarte, £50 million. I think Liverpool were getting linked to him last summer, but decided he wasn't for them based on his lack of ability on the ball. He's a very capable sort of screen defensive midfielder in the old traditional sense, but I think you'd demand him a little bit more on the ball for £50 million. But obviously he's not going to be registered in time anyway, is he? So he's not going to be available. I think it's a good opportunity on Sunday for Liverpool to go there without the chaos that was sort of swirling around Liverpool towards that sort of March, April time last season when they went twice in a few weeks, and just control things a little bit more. Just, try and get on the front foot, calm the crowd, take your chances, because Liverpool had 48 shots in those 2 games, and what did they score? It was 5, was it? And yeah, just sort of, they're a better team, so if they can manage the atmosphere, control things with a little bit more clarity in the final third, they should have too much for United. But we've seen to have said that a lot in the last 18 months, and certainly at Old Trafford it hasn't really worked out.
Yeah, someone said, why do we talk down other clubs?
I've just seen that.
I don't talk down Man City. I don't talk down Arsenal. I think Arsenal have bought very well, and I think Arsenal.
It says if FSG were as clever as they think they are, then they'd have won more than one title under FSG. And what I would say to that is, since Pep got his feet under the table at Man City and they were able to push on, what other clubs have come close to winning the title?
I mean, I
City
think
just won 4 in a row.
Yeah. I think the City thing does make it
7 of the last 6. Is it?
It reframes everything.
6 of the last 7.
Yeah.
Then I would be thinking conspiracy.
So good they won it twice.
I mean, Mike Johnson, who's commented a lot, did say his first question I spotted before we started this was with, like you said before, with the 115 charges that being dealt with, what could this season have been an opportunity? And I agree. I think it could be, but also if they are found guilty of anything and they do get charged, then it will also surely reframe how difficult Liverpool had it for the past 6-7 seasons when they were competing with them, losing out by a point. And whatever you think of their strategy, they were doing very, very well. And I mean, I think, and some people say, we challenged City, but Liverpool has challenged City far more than any other team in the past 6 or 7 years.
100%, yeah. I mean, there are nuances to it all, but totally disagree that it should be one or the other. You know, Liverpool are very well run. Could they have done more at certain points? I couldn't agree more with that. Certainly, the defensive crisis of 2020, 2021 should have been navigated a lot better, I think. I think they needed a midfielder in the summer of 2022. Getting Arthur Melo on a deadline day move was a total failure of everyone, really. But by the same token, you have to credit them when they do look like they're very well run, and they restructured the midfield department last summer very well, getting in the four who they brought in when they were losing some big names and some big legendary figures, really. So, yeah, it's not either or situation, is it? But I just feel like this summer was a chance to maybe get in one or two more, and deciding to go with who they've got, and it's a very good squad, but it was not beyond improvement.
What do you make of Manchester United going into Sunday?
Well, Manchester United, I've said for quite a few years now, they are the most economical team in football, where they make the least amount of effort possible and still manage to get the results that they need. Again, whether you like it or not, since Ten Hag's took over, they've won 2 trophies and they qualified for the Champions League. I know they didn't qualify last season, but they beat Man City in an FA Cup final. And also they got to an FA Cup final and lost as well. So, and they finished above Liverpool season before last.
He's definitely good at knockouts, isn't he?
Yeah, but the reason that they're good at knockouts is because they are still a team of very good individuals rather than a good team with individuals as well, if you see what I mean. I think that's why United will always finish 5th, 6th, something like that, pure on the basis that they can just get away with an awful lot because one of the very good players can just pull one out of the hat, which is what's been happening against Liverpool the last couple of times they played them, which is what conceivably can happen again on Sunday. There's not much you can do about that. I mean, again, people comparing Liverpool to Manchester United, it's like United are where Liverpool were about 10, 15 years ago.
Exactly that. Yeah.
That's exactly where they are. I mean, they've got a stadium there that needs renovating or building a new one. Liverpool have done that. And again, FSG, whether you like them or not, the fact is that they completely rebuilt 2 parts of Anfield. They built a brand new training complex and at the same time got the team where they got to 3 Champions League finals, won one of them, and also won the Premier League. No, they didn't do it, but they still appointed the people. So people say, well, it was Klopp that did it. It says, well, who appointed him? He didn't just turn up, did he? Yeah. You know what I mean? So, unfortunately, anyone's critic, their critic, anyone who criticises them, they're just facts. That's not me having an opinion. Yeah. They are just facts. And we've gone through the fact that they've made the missteps of the, what was it, the furloughing, for example, trying to trademark that, the ticket prices.
That was really poor.
The ticket prices, and the European Super League, of course, was the worst one of the whole lot for me. But the transfer thing, it still amazes me that people get frustrated in the sense that they must know what's going to happen because this happens every single year. Doesn't mean it's right or wrong, but it's just the way that they work, and it's been more kind of concentrated or intensified or exposed, or thank God I'm not a journalist because I can't think of the word, but because there's been so much change behind the scenes. They've put in, as Gorst said before, not just a new structure at Liverpool, but a new structure for the whole parent company because they want to move towards this multi-club ownership, which again, not something I agree with, but if it's happening, it's happening.
I think as well, it's like a can't beat them, join them situation. Did you see that Chelsea have agreed a deal to sell that David Washington to Strasbourg?
Yeah. I mean, I'd if I was FIFA or whoever, which just imagine if I was for a second. If I was FIFA, I'd just ban that. Just say no, you can't do that. But then they might say, well, that means X amount of clubs are going to go to the wall, like Liverpool.
Toulouse.
Exactly, yeah. No, Bordeaux. It's Bordeaux. Bordeaux, yeah. So that might happen. It's like, well, what's better? Keeping these clubs going and keep people in jobs because footballers and the people who work at these establishments are still in, they still need a job. Or make it, so that it's not, you can't own more than one club. It's a tricky one.
Yeah, I was look at Man United and Liverpool and think, when I grew up in the 90s, Man United, like you said, were everything that Liverpool weren't. They were clever. They were obviously a winning team. They had a great stadium. They had a great manager. They chose their signings well. And then again, whatever you think of FSG, and a lot of people are commenting and are upset, FSG managed to find a way of flipping that on its head. And even now, United have had the odd season where they've sort of bounced back, but that was just like Liverpool in 2009. Liverpool finished second, and you'd have years where Liverpool would do so well, and you'd think, oh, they're getting back into it, and then they'd drop away again. And I think, really, they've been the odd season where they've struggled, but Liverpool have consistently performed over the last 7 to 8 years and been a fixture in all competitions. And obviously they go into a new era now. I think that the transfer frustration is really born out of people have never fully agreed with FSG's strategy, and they don't do what Chelsea do. But I think the frustration this year is certainly because people have heard, next summer we'll look at this. Next summer we'll do that.
Yeah.
And I think that's why, even though it's a bit harsh on Richard Hughes, who's coming in and a new structure, he's also inherited a lot of frustration of, we believe that this would get sorted last summer, and now it's the can's been kicked, and now you're saying again there isn't a centre mid. I agree with that. I think I can't agree with the idea that they look around and only Zubimendi fits the style. There must be other people that are in a similar profile that they could have a look at, and they've got to be less afraid of losing money.
Sorry to interrupt. Isn't that on the recruitment team rather than FSG then?
Yeah, I said that. I said that.
And I know we're going to go back to the
it's
fact
not-
that FSG appointed them
Yeah.
in the same way I said before about Klopp. So it's on them really.
Yeah.
I think they're uber cautious, aren't they? And to a fault sometimes. Like, we know Liverpool can't sign a £70 million player and then for him to be terrible for 2 years in the same way Jadon Sancho has at Manchester United. Write him off, send him on loan, get rid of his wages and just move on. Chelsea have done it with, to sell Lukaku today to Napoli. They bought him at 90 million, didn't work out, they got rid of him, moved on. Liverpool aren't really able to do that. But I just think you need to loosen the reins a little bit more and just have a bit more caution to the wind sometimes with players you're buying. But I prefer Liverpool's strategy over Chelsea's.
Yeah.
There is a middle ground. Don't even think Liverpool need to get to that middle ground. I just think they just need to get a little bit sort of in between the middle ground and the current strategy. But I'm not having these comparisons with Chelsea. At least Chelsea signed players. They're an absolute embarrassment to the Premier League.
Yeah,
They're the laughing stock of Premier League, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say the same about United right now. I know they've won trophies, but I mean, look at the players they've signed this summer. And again, we'll know in a year's time. But they've signed a load of Ajax players, and they're obviously allowing the manager to pick who he wants. But they've repackaged themselves, saying, we've got this brand new structure, and
Because they've heard for years about Liverpool, they've been so smart with Edwards and all that stuff, and then they've sort of half done it, but still Ten Hag's getting who he wants.
I mean, let's face it, they had a 2 or 3 week review into the manager position, basically went to speak to a different manager in Tuchel, got turned down, and then went back to their manager and said, we've decided to stick with you.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not good. That's not good management. That's really poor, isn't it? And it can't be good for the manager to know, well, if I have a bad 6 months, I'm gone.
It reminds me very much of Brendan Rodgers' next day of execution in 2015. I think they changed the backroom staff, didn't they, United this summer, and Ruud van Nistelrooy's one of a few who've come in.
Move the deck chairs around.
Yeah, and this feels a little bit like when, is it Sean O'Driscoll, is that his name?
Yeah.
And it was Gary McAllister.
Yeah.
And then, by October, they're all sort of out on the rear and Klopp's come in.
Yeah, but I think the biggest thing with transfers is Liverpool tried to be too perfect. Again, reading between the lines of some of Ian Graham's stuff, it's like they're looking for a sure thing in the market, and I just think that sport and football doesn't work like that. You can find the best player in the world, bring them over from a different country, and they might not like the weather, the circumstances, and not, for whatever reason, not play well. It's not a sure thing, and I think too often they're waiting for that sure thing. And I think this summer showed it, didn't they? They wanted Zubimendi, they didn't get him, and went, well, there's no one else out there. But I do see people's frustrations, because even if they'd spent that money on someone else and it not worked out, well, transfers don't work out. I always use Keita as an example. Keita, they planned for. There was a lot of hype around him. They planned for years. They spent a lot of money on him, close to their transfer record, 52 million. Waited a year to bring him in, and was he quite the player they expected? Probably not, but he did contribute, and he did, and they won things, and he was there, and he was a part of it. So you don't completely write it off, but I bet you that he didn't go to plan. And they didn't get any money back on him, did he? Left on a free. So I think you've got to accept that those sorts of things happen. Right, we've talked a lot about transfers, and we've got to start wrapping it up soon. So let's talk about the footy for Sunday.
Stefan Bajcetic has gone to Red Bull Salzburg, by the way.
Has that happened?
Yeah.
There was a bit of talk about Barcelona. What happened there?
Yeah, Barcelona just made a late attempt to get him. Really, I think it was an injury to Marc Bernal, the midfielder, and tried to get him in, but Salzburg were already sort of advanced, and I think Pep Linders, I think once he sort of makes it known that he wants you to come in, I think it's a very tough thing to say no, really, particularly when, you know, he's told you for years that he thinks you're going to be a top player. So, he had his medical yesterday and is now at Salzburg for the season. And we had a chance to speak to Slot about that today, and he's basically confirmed that, there is still a plan for Bajcetic, and it is very much at Liverpool for the long term. But he made it also clear that he needs minutes this season after so long out, and a good opportunity for him now in the Austrian Bundesliga.
Yeah, some of the comments, you're trying to make a point. I wasn't saying that Sanders 7. I was arguing that you can take chances on players, and if it doesn't work out, it's not the end of the world. But people seem to have taken that the wrong way. and some people saying, at least United are acting like a top team. Are they? I mean, is it...
Sign a load of players who played for the former manager years ago. What if Liverpool's signed 6 final
and also
players?
they're having to let go one of the most influential players just to make sure that they can buy some other players.
Yeah,
Scott McTominay, which I just don't understand
act like
at all.
a big club. Does that mean you sign a player for 70 million, sell him 2 years later because he's no good?
Yeah,
Because he hasn't done it for you. That's not being a big club.
But did they finish 5th last season? And there was
there
was water pouring out the roof. You know, like this is
finished 8th.
8th. Yeah,
Who did?
the worst
United
Premier League
finished
team.
Did they?
Yeah,
It was the lowest ever finish in the Premier League.
They won the FA Cup. Though.
They won the FA
They
Cup,
won a trophy.
but they finished 8th. They are not acting like a top club. You know, just spending loads of money on loads of different players isn't acting like a top club. There's so much more to it than that. Sorry, but I really just don't
realised
disagree
United
with
finished 8th. That was quite poor for them. Yeah.
I mean,
I'm checking now. Is that a 7th or 8th?
I mean, at the end of the day, when FSG came in, Liverpool spent loads of money on bad players,
8th,
didn't they?
yeah.
They signed Stuart Downing for 20 million,
points.
and he was rubbish.
And they had a goal difference to
Carroll.
-1. That's not a top club.
Stuart Downing wasn't rubbish.
Oh, he was. He
wasn't rubbish.
He was.
He just
he
was an example of a player who was a good player, but he couldn't quite grasp playing at a big club.
He would have had a much different career if that goal would have gone in against Sunderland on the opening day. Do you remember that?
Yes.
He was
dribbling and he hit the bar from like 30 yards.
This is a strange conversation to have on this podcast, but he was a bang average left winger who should have been playing for Aston Villa for his entire career and came to Liverpool.
I disagree.
He just never ever should be at Liverpool, and that's what happens when you just throw around money and you're not sure what you're doing. You buy bang average players. But anyway.
There's a game on Sunday.
There is a game on Sunday. Let's pick our team and make our predictions. Unless there's anything else you'd like to say about the game on Sunday.
What do you want to say about the game? We can just talk about it generally, can't we? Because obviously this is Liverpool went to Old Trafford twice last year and didn't win either game, even though they absolutely battered them for the most part. And one of them cost them the FA Cup, and the other one was kind of the beginning of the end of the title challenge, which I know we all disagreed on this one, which I thought was going to end anyway at some point. But I do think that Liverpool will have a little. I know they only played them the other week, didn't they? You were there, weren't you? But it's not quite the same, is it?
No,
they weren't both at full strength. And United had a few chances. It wasn't really a 3-0, wasn't it? It wasn't really a 3-0 game, was it? There was it.
I wouldn't say United had loads. I think Keller had made a few good saves, but I'd be struggling to tell you if I remember it perfectly. Merge into one on those 3 games.
Yeah, I would like to see. I mean, you touched on it before, Gorsty. I'm interested to see Slot's style there and whether there is a bit more control. And I really would love to see. I mean, I'd like to see them get goal up, but if they go a goal up,
early goal,
do they slow things down? Because especially at Old Trafford, there was times there last year where I just felt like Liverpool would be either in the ascendancy or a goal ahead, and still be looking to score 2-3. You know, the football would be so fast and frantic, and I felt like you said, because United have got so many good individuals, they just gave up moments, and those players scored in the right moments, and Liverpool lost and drew those games. And it'd be interested whether they slow things right down Sunday if they get ahead, and not give United those chances.
Yeah, I think it's a great barometer of where Liverpool are up to on the slot. Yeah. You know, the first 2 games have been decent enough, games that you'd expect Liverpool to be winning, but they have done without conceding too many chances, really. But this is a real test, and if they come through this one, then you're starting to get excited, aren't you? International break and whatever else, but you know, there'll be loads to get excited about. I think if Liverpool go there, you know, assert themselves, show that they are the better squad, and come away with what could be a huge 3 points.
Yeah. Okay, so let's pick our teams. Or is there any point? Is it just the same team as last time?
Yeah, probably not many changes, but one thing I think is going to be massive for Liverpool is going there with a proper back five.
Yeah.
You know, Alisson in goal, Trent, Robertson, Konate and Van Dijk at the back, because that didn't happen in either game last year, did it? Liverpool were really sort of patching it up around that time of the year.
Yeah. Doyle, are you still reading those comments?
I was just
Still
looking, I was
dwelling
just
on
getting
the
distracted
goal.
by someone just mentioned Southampton, so I lost interest in what they were saying then.
Do you, is there any point in our picking our teams, or is it the same again?
I mean, okay, the question is, what would he want to change? And I mean, Diaz has been good on the left. Jota's probably the only one, although he did score one in the first game and set one up in the second.
Joss has been good.
Yeah, he has been good, but I always think he's one of these players, we've said this so many times, is that when he's not involved in the game, you do sometimes think, what's he doing? But because he's been pressing that well as well, so he's not leaving. We're keeping you up there. Our producer.
Just yawning
nodding
away.
up there.
Maybe he's the John Henry who's just said, what a boring chat. John Henry gave up on us. I tried to be nice to John Henry, and then in the end he just was a bit nasty. So
Told you, two first names.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, the rest of the team, there isn't really much scope for change, is there? Let's be honest.
No. All right, predictions then. Gorsty, you can go first.
2-1 Liverpool. I'm going to be positive. I'm always positive, but yeah, 2-1 Liverpool. Let's put this sort of thing that's hanging over Liverpool. Not an easy place to go. It's making out like it's, you know, a place Liverpool should be winning, but I just feel that they can just assert the fact that they're a better team on United, keep the crowd quiet, 2-1 win.
What I think is quite interesting is Liverpool's new style of play, and you're talking about if they go 1-0 up, and can they slow it down? What happens if they go 1-0 down? Can they speed it up?
That's a good question.
Right,
yeah.
so
Got to slow it down, got to speed it up.
Yeah, you've got to
Hold and give.
Yeah,
Right.
that's
Oh,
the one.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
What were you thinking of?
No, that's
I must admit, I didn't think I was thinking of that one. Yeah. Anyway, nice contemporary music reference there, Joseph. Thank you. So yeah, that's what's going to be interesting for me, is how they cope with in a different way in case that happens. So I think, as we've said before, it's a massive test. Initially, I was going to say 2-1 to United, because I just basically no Liverpool managers won his first game at Old Trafford against Man United since 1936. And we're talking like some of the best managers. No, I was just thinking about it. I couldn't get a ticket.
Yeah.
So, and that's the only time it's ever happened. So it's that long ago. So if they win, it's a massive, massive, massive statement, which is probably why I think that they won't win. So I'm going to go with a 2-2 draw.
I think Szoboszlai is massive, actually. I think, you know, United get swayed, cut through their midfield, don't they, when Casemiro plays. McTominay's not going to be there. Ugarte's not registered. So if Casemiro starts on his own, it's a chance to really sort of test his legs, and I think they're gone, to be fair. So Szoboszlai is huge for this one.
I find McTominay, this is the sort of game that I think
Yeah.
someone like him would come in and play well. And I know they say about PSR, but I find selling players like him a little bit bizarre.
Last season?
Probably.
Did he score in one of the Old Trafford games?
I forget.
Kobe Mainoo scored, didn't he? Ahmed Diallo.
The FA Cup game then, wasn't it? It must have been, if he did score. I seem to, or was it the season before?
Season before, maybe. But I mean, someone tweeted the other day, typical, it'll be like 2-1 Man United win, Liverpool play well. But I think I'm going to stay positive and say, I actually think they might win 1-0. I think there might be a little bit of like that control, slow it down, being a bit boring at times, but grinding
How
it.
great would a really boring 1-0 win be?
It'd be brilliant.
Love
you know, those Houllier 1-0 wins,
Yeah.
you know, that one when Murphy did the little chip. I mean, just
great
take
ball.
the sting out of it and frustrate them. And I feel like I watched United against Brighton and they were just all over the place. They did have attacking moments that were good, but I feel like Liverpool can have chances here. And if they take one, they could slow it down, frustrate them, the crowd
Could
could get
look
on
a
them.
lot better defensively with
Yeah.
the two sitting on the ahead of the defence.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what I'm going for. We'll wrap it up there. Let you two get back to work. Look, whether you agree with us
any
or
more
don't,
abuse? Any more abuse?
whether you agree with us or don't, really appreciate all the comments. Loads of comments and loads of questions. Really appreciate you being with us and listening. Why is Ian Doyle so miserable? He's not. He's
not miserable at all.
Miserable. Look
It's
at his
got-
little face.
Imagine if we were all as upbeat as Joe and Gorsty. It wouldn't work. It just wouldn't work, would it?
He's not miserable when he's playing in his band, Finch. then he's
the
he's very
driving
upbeat.
force.
Yeah,
Shatters
driving
it out.
force.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Untamed.
Yeah. So
Relentless.
there you go. So yeah, we really appreciate all your comments and all your support. Thank you very much for listening to us. Give us a like, subscribe, give us some stars, and we'll be back on Monday to talk Manchester United and hopefully a win, and then to look ahead to an international break. Yep, one of them already. We'll see you then. Ta-ra.